on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody, and a happy Wednesday morning to all of you. It is 6:07 here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Yes, it is Wednesday, the Wednesday before Christmas, a scant few shopping days left, so kick yourself into high gear. Listen, if you haven't found a way to reward those around you, as Julie Gunlock said. Julie, good morning, Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
There you go. You could do gift baskets I say you could do gift baskets. Julie says cash and gift cards, that's the way to go. And she's right.
Not for your whole family, but
No,
as
folks
if you're a boss
you,
and you're
yes.
giving things out to people. It's a tough economy. Gas
Yes.
is expensive. Food is expensive.
A
My
gas
tip.
card. I like, something, a Wawa gift card is not a bad way to go. Or sheets.
There you go.
You don't think that sounds weird and cheap? Like if somebody gave, maybe it would be greatly
it's
appreciated.
not weird and cheap if you load it up.
Okay, yeah, so that's true. Yes, that's a very good point. It's not like those old McDonald's. Remember the McDonald's?
Yeah, I don't
gift
suggest you get someone a $5 gas card.
I'm
Okay.
saying. Okay. Yes. Here's your card for a half gallon of gas. Anyway, so listen, I want to get into this as we're having a little fun here, because you got to have a little fun. Big story yesterday. Now, this was inevitable, by the way. This was inevitable. Donald Trump kicked off of a ballot somewhere in some state. The dumbest take, besides all the happy dances being done by the left, David Frum, who's no stranger to dumb takes. David Frum writes yesterday, things I said no state Supreme Court would ever have the cojones. He used the other word. The cojones to do, the Supreme Court just did. The Colorado Supreme Court just did. Tribe law and letting for the win. Listen, they're challenging Donald Trump in just about every state. It was bound, right? You had a 2% chance, a 1 in 50 chance at least, of Donald Trump getting kicked off the ballot somewhere. 51 if you count the District of Columbia. But this is the thing. It's also, there's a big, huge caveat here, which is that they've stayed this order until January 4th. And I don't even know when the Colorado primary is at this point in time. I'm going to look that up right now. Julie, what was your immediate reaction here?
Look, the Democrats are panicking. Biden is cratering in the polls. We see that Kamala is no better. And every time they do this kind of stuff, it adds 5 points to Trump's polling, because it gives him the sympathy factor. And it is horrible what has happened here. It really is unprecedented. And what the Democrats also don't seem to understand or care really about is that they are setting a precedent here that will be used against them at some further date.
Right.
This is scary. This is scary stuff. And I feel like you and me and certainly Larry tend to be, Larry is big on saying, like, don't be an Eeyore and don't panic and don't be alarmist about things. But this is bad. This is truly, again, unprecedented.
Well, right. I mean, listen, we've been talking about the sort of the slow slide, and maybe it's an even faster than a slow slide, the slow slide into despotism, when you have the son of the sitting president of the United States openly defying a congressional subpoena, rewarded, by the way, by flying yesterday with his dad on Marine One, which I know we're going to talk about later on in the show. The same days, the same work week that happens, the Colorado Supreme Court, a state Supreme Court, turns around and kicks the former president of the United States off the ballot. Here is Jonathan Turley, the famed law professor at George Washington University, someone whom I have admired for decades now because of his work on the problem of expansive government power. He talks about expansive executive branch power. Here is judicial branch power. Here is Jonathan Turley talking about it.
Well, this court just handed partisans on both sides the ultimate tool to try to shortcut elections. And it's very, very dangerous. I mean, this country is a powder keg, and this court is just throwing matches at it. And I think that it's a real mistake, but I think that they're wrong on the law. January 6th was many things, most of it not good. in my view, was not an insurrection. It was a riot. That doesn't mean that the people responsible for that day shouldn't be held accountable. But to call this an insurrection for the purpose of disqualification would create a slippery slope for every state in the union. This is a time when we actually need democracy. We need to allow the voters to vote. We need to hear their decision. And the court here just said, you're not going to get that. In Colorado, we're not going to let you vote for Donald Trump.
No.
What is amazing?
And again, this
Sorry,
is they are yes. They took him off the ballot, claiming that he was guilty of insurrection. Again, it's not just that Trump hasn't been found guilty of that; it's that he hasn't even been charged with that.
Right? Yes, of course.
So that's another part of this that is just absurd. This is a left-wing court. Again, they are activist judges. Go on.
No, go ahead. No, but go ahead.
This is what you get. Go ahead.
Let's be really clear. And we're going to talk about some of the other reactions within the Republican, candidates on both sides. Reacting to this, people reacting on both sides of this. But let's just talk about what's going to happen and the other things that are at work here, because yes, this is kind of about kicking Donald Trump off the ballot to an extent. It's really not about that. I don't think anybody on the left really thinks that Donald Trump is going to get permanently removed from the ballot somewhere. What this is for the left is about manipulating things, because I think they genuinely want to run against Donald Trump. But what they want to do is they want to make the 2024 election not about Biden's record, and not about the issues, not about the economy, not about the sort of this idea that we're going to return to adulthood and all things were going to be sunshine and lollipops throughout the United States, and they failed to deliver on that. They want this election to be about Donald Trump. They want it to be about Donald Trump's eligibility to run. They want it to be about making, Donald Trump as toxic as possible. Because, and you've heard me say this before, folks, I'm going to say it again for the uninitiated, elections nowadays are not about moving massive numbers of people. They are about moving small numbers of people from one column to the other in key locations, key swing states, key swing districts within those states, etc. And if you can make Donald Trump as toxic as possible, if you can raise the question as to whether or not Donald Trump should even be eligible to run because he's an insurrectionist, well, then you raise the question in people's minds and they move on from there. And the other part of this is, Julie, that it is all about, once the Supreme Court rightly decides that Donald Trump is eligible to be on the ballot, because, right, as you point out, Julie, not only has he not been convicted of an insurrection, he's never been charged with insurrection. Well, because it's going to be the conservative members of the court finding for it, maybe there'll be a handful of progressive members of the court who find this way. But either way, because the Supreme Court is going to decide that Donald Trump can remain on the ballot, this is going to lend to the illegitimacy or the left's perpetuating this idea that the high court is illegitimate. I'm sorry for filibustering there, Julie, but listen, we're going to continue to talk about this. We've got Hans von Spakovsky joining us in the 8 a.m. hour. We got Cal Thomas joining us in a couple minutes. But first, it's 6:15 a.m. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes, first on the fives. Here's Steve Hirschhorn in the Hadid Carpet.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So Julie, we got Hans von Spakovsky joining us in the 8 a.m. hour, Cal Thomas in a couple minutes. I mean, I'm sorry, I went on my filibuster there. Am I right? I mean, it's about delegitimizing the Supreme Court. It's about making it all about Donald Trump and not talking about the issues, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you made that connection, because yesterday you saw that ProPublica, which is basically a mouthpiece for the Democrat Party, came out with this another hit piece on Clarence Thomas. So very curious there, the timing of everything. This is definitely, as you laid out there quite succinctly, that the tentacles of this go way beyond the election. It is they play the long game. We've always talked about the Democrats.
Of course.
They play the long game really well, and this is a way to get at the court as much as it is to keep Donald Trump off the ticket.
That's exactly it. So the reactions from the other Republican candidates, even Chris Christie, appalled at this. Vivek Ramaswamy, no stranger to over-the-top reactions, has said if Donald Trump pulled from the ballot. He's going to get out. He's
RFK,
done. He's
RFK
done.
too. RFK and saying this is insane. What are you doing?
That is correct here. Of course, we got to hear from the big man himself. I have not heard this clip. I'm going to warn you here. Here is Donald Trump's reaction to being pulled off the ballot in Colorado.
It's no wonder crooked Joe Biden and the far-left lunatics are desperate to stop us by any means necessary. They are willing to violate the U.S. Constitution at levels never seen before in order to win this election. Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. It's a threat.
What I love, by the way, is
they're
is that you?
weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference because we're beating them so badly in the polls.
Yeah, listen, that's not why. Listen, I appreciate what the president has to say. It's not that he's rising and he's beating you in the polls. They want to make this about the insurrection, right? This is yet another way of keeping January 6th alive within the popular mindset of people. It raises doubt. Here, you look at this. Heather put up this great listing of the states on which Donald Trump is. There are suits that are out there. I said there was a 1 in 50 chance that this was going to happen. It's really like a 1 in 20 chance, it looks like. Again, I shouldn't be looking at this. But there are a bunch of states, Alaska, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, Vermont, New Jersey, West Virginia, and South Carolina, all states that have suits to bar Donald Trump from the ballot. It was only a matter of time before one of them was. It's like the Powerball, right? It's only a matter of time before someone wins. Yeah. And these odds are not out there. It is amazing to me here. And then again, we're going to be talking about this. I can't wait to get Cal Thomas's perspective.
Yeah, well,
on this.
I think you are right that we are going to see more of this because, it's the Teflon candidate here. Nothing seems to stick to him. This last week we've been talking about his unfortunate comments about the blood. He did not fully say what the media. He's not exactly said what the media is reporting what he said. He didn't say immigrants are poisoning the blood, but I know that there's some imagery there that's unfortunate. But again, the media, this was kind of catching fire. There was a lot of criticism of Trump, and then Colorado goes and does this,
right? And
Donald Trump's polling goes way sky high because again, Americans see Trump as a victim of this machine, this incredibly dangerous Democrat machine that is perfectly fine destroying the country if it means keeping Donald Trump out of office.
That's absolutely true. As someone else pointed out, it is a situation in which it was somebody over the National Review pointing out that at the very least they should want Donald Trump because if he runs and wins, he can't run again for office. Which, it brings a full end to the Donald Trump era. Listen, we've got so much more to get to right now at 6:22 here on WMAL.
Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Obviously, the biggest story of the day is Donald Trump being kicked off the ballot nominally, right? Because they've got a stay and until early January, and the primary in Colorado isn't until March. We know what the Supreme Court is going to do, but the fact that they took this step, that makes it the biggest story of the day. We're going to be talking with Cal Thomas about it after the news and the weather. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. We got Hans von Spakovsky joining us as well to talk about this later on in the show. And we got to tie it back in, as I mentioned earlier. Got to tie it back in with this Hunter Biden story. Hunter Biden getting a ride on Marine One. All of this is interrelated. When we talk about the descent into despotism, this is what we're talking about here. It is 6:30. This is O'Connor and Company, WMAL.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is 6:37 in the morning on News Talk 105.9, making sense of the news. A good Monday morning. Good Wednesday morning to all of you. By the way, did the count, Julie. It is 5 shopping days until Christmas, and what gorgeous days they are going to be, gorgeous and cool. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. I'm not Larry O'Connor. I'm Andrew Langer. Larry returns tomorrow. Some of you will be relieved. Many of you will be relieved that Larry returns. Sitting with Julie Gunlock. Joining us right now, syndicated columnist Cal Thomas. Cal, there is no other major story other than Donald Trump being kicked off the ballot in Colorado. Obviously, this is by design. They don't expect to keep him off, Cal, do they?
No, there's going to be an appeal, of course. I mean, the Supreme Court may decide this election once again. It's interesting, the UK Daily Mail, which often reports things faster than the U.S. press, has found that all members of the Colorado Supreme Court are Democrats. What a surprise. One is a gay icon. Others are Ivy League scholars, and we've all seen what's been happening on Ivy League campuses and what they've been teaching recently. This is something, as Jonathan Turley of George Washington University said last night, is just going to fuel the fire. More matches on the fire. Let the voters decide. We don't need courts and experts and other people. Donald Trump has not been convicted of insurrection in a court of law. Now, I think a lot of things he's done and a lot of things he's said I'm against, but let the people decide. That's what a real constitutional Republican democracy are all about.
Hear, hear.
One interesting thing is not only is this barring from putting Trump's name on the ballot, but the state Secretary of State is barred from counting any write-in votes for Trump. That's significant as well, because that's sort of telling the state's top election official to invalidate thousands of these legally cast votes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wish they would be as strident on looking at illegally cast votes. There was a story yesterday.
Yes.
I think it was in the Washington Times that 1 in 20 people admit to having cast fraudulent ballots or been engaged in fraudulent activity in the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Now, those are only the people who are admitting it. So imagine the number of people it might be who are not admitting it. Again, this is going to undermine whatever is left of the credibility of our election system. The left just seems to keep doing this. There are at least a dozen other states now with similar cases, similar to the Colorado case, that are trying to keep Trump off the ballot and to keep write-in votes from voting for him. This is the stuff of dictatorship.
Yes.
We've never had this in America before.
And Cal, it's interesting. I did the count. It's 16 states have challenges, of which, again, it was inevitable that one of them was going to have this kind of a ruling here. Let's talk about this other part of it, which is the left wants this for 2 reasons. Number one, they want to make the election about Donald Trump's legitimacy to run. And then they also want this because they want the Supreme Court to rule, because it allows them to further this idea of the Supreme Court being illegitimate. Talk about that.
Yeah, you can't have it both. If the Supreme Court rules the way you'd like them to rule, then they're legitimate. But if they don't, then they're illegitimate. I mean, come on, pick a side. I just think that this is the wrong way to go, and the voters are going to be very, very upset about this. And I think that the Trump supporters especially, you can't be having these decisions made by 4 people, in this case in Colorado, 4 Democrats for the entire state. It's just not right. It undermines confidence in our system. And again, you don't have to be a pro-Trumper. Maybe you want to vote for somebody else, somebody younger, somebody without all of the baggage that Trump has. That's fine. I understand that. I'm sympathetic to it. But if you allow for this kind of thing to go on for Trump, then what's to prevent them from doing it for other candidates that you might like?
You know, Cal, another thing that is driving people to Trump is the border crisis. Yesterday, record-breaking more than 14,000 illegal immigrants were encountered in one day. And the Biden administration's approach to this seems to be just quicker processing these people into the United States. How do you think that this is going to affect the election?
In any other situation, this would be considered an invasion. If these people came in with uniforms and guns, presumably our military would be down there trying to push them out. I love Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas. He signed this law yesterday allowing the state police, the Department of Public Safety, to arrest these immigrants. Now, of course, immediately the Biden administration, which reacts to that faster than it does to border security, says they're going to file suits because only the federal government can decide these things. Well, what happens when the federal government is not deciding these things? What happens when the federal government is not living up to the laws that have been passed by members of Congress of both parties and signed by presidents of both parties? This is a violation of Biden's constitutional oath to uphold the laws of the United States. It's completely outrageous.
Cal, listen, before we let you go, I got to ask you, 2024 election, which is the more likely scenario? It's decided by Congress or decided by the Supreme Court?
You know, I'm not a prophet or the son of one, and if you tell me every event that's going to happen between now and next November, I might be able to give you an educated guess. But this is only the beginning. This is the wildest election I've ever seen since I started paying attention with Kennedy and Nixon in 1960. I don't know anybody who wants to go out on that limb.
No.
So many things can happen and probably will.
That's exactly right. It ain't over till it's over, and we got a long way to go. Cal Thomas, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Got so much more coming up. So, this White House can't help itself, Julie Gunlock. I mean, it really can't help itself. You get these big stories, and then, one would think the worm had turned. They had moved Hunter Biden out of the popular lexicon, and then he flies on Air Force One. He flies on Marine One. The White House, I guess, thinking that no one would notice Hunter Biden getting off of the helicopter with his dad, and yet they didn't put it on the manifest. They didn't tell anybody about it. I mean, this is just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a lawless White House. They don't care. They don't think the rules apply to them. And every time you criticize Hunter, he says things like, they've tried to dehumanize me.
Oh, my God,
they belittle my recovery. They're trying to embarrass my father. And even worse, on Moby's podcast, which I didn't even know he had a podcast.
Oh, my God. Were you
Hunter
not
Biden,
you weren't in with us talking about this, were you? Were you?
Oh, no, I did. I
did.
But he tells Moby that the strategy here is Republicans are trying to kill Hunter Biden so that it effectively kills his father out of grief. I mean, the audacity of not just the White House but Hunter Biden.
I'm a victim.
It's amazing.
Like the Senate staff.
He's a victim. But they know the media will not focus on this. They know the mainstream media will not. So why not?
So here's the thing. To further set it up, last week Hunter Biden affirmatively defies a congressional subpoena.
Yep.
He has a press conference outside. He is not going to go and answer questions. Most especially the question is, who is the big guy? As we talked about earlier this week about the issue of whether or not that we talked with Joe DeGeneva about this, whether or not Joe Biden advising his son or being involved in his son's discussions to defy this congressional subpoena, whether or not that would be an impeachable offense. We talked about that on Monday. I think it absolutely is. We know that they're having conversations. One would think that they would avoid this, and yet here is Hunter Biden flying on Marine One and invariably having conversations with his father. So KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, was asked about this. Here's the question and the answer. Let's play cut 3.
I noticed today when the president arrived on Marine One that Hunter Biden and his son Beau were also on the helicopter with them. The White House provides to the public a list of staffers who travel with the president. Why don't they provide a list of the family members that travel with the president on these government flights?
I have to double check to see if that is indeed correct, because I did ask about that. So let me just double check.
Okay, so we get that. She has to double check, and then she's asked again about this, and she continues with this sort of word salad. Let's play cut 4.
They were observing a very somber anniversary for them, and so I'm not going to add anything more to that. But this was obviously a somber moment in the family, and so they were certainly together to acknowledge and take part in that anniversary. So we just want to be really sensitive to that. and make that very, very clear. And don't have anything to add about the family. Obviously, the president is very close to his family as it relates to the holidays. He spends, obviously, every holiday with his family, mostly every holiday with his family. I just don't have a list of names to share with you at this time.
Yeah, this is, you know, they always do this. They always have some tragedy to point to, right? Like, and the translation is, you're a jerk for answering, for asking the
That's
question.
exactly what they're saying. How about this? How about Hunter stays in Delaware or drives himself back to D.C. or gets somebody else to drive him back to, or how about he takes the train back to D.C. like his dad would do?
Everything,
there
though.
Any
Everything.
one of the ways.
But everything. Every time you ask a question, it's like, you know, every time someone asks a question about Hunter's behavior, which is, you know, influence peddling, it's, well, you know, he's a drug addict. Let's be sensitive. Let's be kind. And now Hunter Biden gets on Air Force One. He's not on the logs. And, oh, no, you're not allowed to ask because it's the anniversary of the 1972 car crash that killed Biden's first wife. I mean, good Lord.
You know, how about this, you know, the other part of it, right, which is also, how dare you criticize him? He's not only an addict, but he's an artist. And, of course, they live their lives differently.
And he lost his mother in 1972.
Yes, he's an artist. So we go down this road. Here's the thing it comes back to. This is them thumbing their nose at the rest of you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Biden White House saying, we don't care that our son is under investigation. We don't care that there are these allegations against the President of the United States for raking in huge sums of cash by his son sort of arranging these deals. We don't care that the son has ignored a congressional subpoena. In fact, we support it. We support it so much that we're going to reward him by letting him fly back from Delaware to D.C. on Marine One. And if you ask us about it, you're a jerk, as Julie just said. It's 6:52 here on O'Connor and Company, WMAL.
Hey, it's Larry for Renters Warehouse.